think there are differences. Are humans humans, kids, adults, absolutely 100%. Has the environment changed and that in turn changes us in a way? I do think so. But what I will say, what I'm loving about my millennials is they they get work-life balance and they are really challenging the establishment to say, we want work life balance. And I have told all of them, I am behind you 100%.
It's so funny. I remember, some like 15 years ago, there was like, oh, that's the end of the world. The millennials are going to take over and this is really going to be horrible. And I was thinking, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's, they're going to be great. Oh, anyway, okay, so rapid fire. I have some rapid fire questions. So
Alrighty.
just to be fun. So the book that changed how you think about therapy.
I read it so long ago, but it would have been Maslow's. It was the book on Maslow's hierarchy and our hierarchy of
Hierarchy of
needs.
needs, yeah.
Mhm.
Yoga or meditation, which one do you need more?
Yoga.
Best reality TV show, no judgment.
Oh, that's so hard because you're in my genre now. I'm gonna say the latest episode of Traders was very, very good.
So how did I know that you watch reality TV?
I don't know. How did you know that?
The thing you wish every college freshman knew on day one.
It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better.
And it's something a client said to you that you'll never forget.
Something a client said to me that I'll never forget.
You can always say pass too.
I really can't think of anything, so I'm gonna say
Okay, so
pass.
obviously not. Obviously, okay. So favorite amusement park ride.
Oh, the Ferris wheel.
Okay.
I'm not an amusement park person. I've been,
So
but
I
I
don't know
am
how
not
we
an
threw that
amusement
one
park.
in there, but
Okay.
off the cuff. Okay, um, so tell me about where you are in your business. Is this something that you're looking to grow? Are you happy with where it is, or do you do marketing and try to get new clients in, or how do you do all that?
I hesitate to say I'm happy where it is because I feel like that's a jinx statement. But I'm going to say it, universe, be kind to me. I'm happy where it is. I have a busy practice. I have more work than sometimes I want to do. So I don't really want to increase that part. With mental health counseling, you need to always have a steady stream, though. If you're going to run a practice and you are going to maintain a practice, you need to have a steady stream of clients. So if clients are starting to rotate out, you need to have the ability to rotate clients in. So
Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Trustcast show, and we're really happy to have with us Ellen Zimmerman. Ellen, thanks for coming on.
thanks for having me.
Okay, so today's guest, Ellen, started her career as a special education teacher, became a high school counselor, then dean of counseling services, then a certified custody evaluator who walks in the middle of the hardest family moments you can imagine. And then along the way, she co-wrote a college textbook and built a private practice that's been serving people for 25 years. So you call yourself a wise soul right in your LinkedIn headline. And that's not a credential. What does that mean to you?
What that means to me is that I personally have lived a lot of life. And as my work as a teacher and counselor and people advocate, I've learned a lot about people and how people respond to certain situations in their life. And so I've gained a lot of wisdom over the years about a lot of different things.
So you started as a special education teacher. What was what was it what was it about? What was it about working with those kids that pulled you towards counseling?
So when you work with special education students, one of the things you notice pretty early on is there are many things going on in their heads and their hearts that aren't really related to school. or to even learning in school. And so when I first started working, I realized, wow, a lot of times what we think about ourselves greatly affect how we show up. What we've been told about ourselves greatly affects how we show up. And just watching students and working with students and talking to them about where they saw themselves in life, it just seemed like such a natural progression to go into being a counselor.
So you went and you got your master's in counseling from Illinois State. Is that right?
That is correct.
And so was that a pivot or was it always a plan?
I would say it was a pivot and a plan. It was something that I always wanted to do, but there was a time in my life where I didn't think that I could get a master's degree. I wasn't that great of a student in high school, and I just never saw myself as being an academic per se. And so it was kind of a progression of this is how I want to help people, but it was a pivot of I actually can go out and earn a master's degree, and this is something that I can do and be successful at.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. So you spent 6 years as a high school counselor before moving into higher education. What's different about the way teenagers carry pain versus how an adult does? And I don't even know if higher education is necessarily all adults, but they're kind of older, younger adults. But how is that
Yes.
different?
Well, when you're working I guess the first way that comes to mind is by the time they get into college and they get older, they have put more filters, more film, more protective layers over themselves, over their heads, their hearts, their thoughts, their beliefs. So there tends to be more work when they're older, kind of working your way through all those layers versus when they're younger, a lot of times their emotions present in behavior, in affect. And so when they're younger, a lot of that is helping them figure out how to regulate themselves and then how to show up in the world in a way that is going to be best for them.
So, building mental health. So you became the dean of counseling
I was.
services at a college and
Correct.
spent 8 years building a comprehensive mental health support for students. What did that campus look like when you started versus when you left?
So the understanding of importance for mental health has definitely come a very long way. And in my position as a dean, I was over several departments. Counseling and mental health was a big part of that, but also accessibilities was a big part of that, accessibility services. So moving instructors and students into a new expanded era of access to mental health services on campus. That was not something we had really ever done before. We would refer out, but now we have clinicians that are actually servicing students right on campus. That has definitely been a big change. And the understanding for individual needs and how important that is has also really been a big change. That's been nice to see.
So you co-wrote Bridging the First Year Experience with Debbie Kaiser, a textbook
Correct.
used in college first year courses. What were you seeing in freshmen that made you say somebody needs to write this book, somebody needs to write this down?
All righty. Well, let me start by shout out to Debbie Kaiser because she is the best. So Debbie and I was the department chair of the first year experience. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, Zane, but many colleges in the 2000s put courses in place called something like the first year experience or the first year success because they were finding that students were coming to campus and not being successful. They were dropping out and failing out at rates that were, not great and had definitely increased. So many campuses created these courses, but what they became was just kind of dumping grounds for information. Here's how you sign up for a class. Here's how you transfer. Here's how you do this when the first year experience really is so much more. It's about learning your values, figuring out who you are as a person, understanding how to self-advocate. There are so many components to being a first-year student. So what Debbie and I did that was different was, number one, it wasn't a textbook. It was interactive, it was online, and it allowed them to take different stories or different routes. And we really liked that interactive part. That was something that hadn't been done before. I don't know if it's been done now, to be honest with you. I haven't looked at that market in a while. But that was interesting. And then just our content was very personal and very about growing as a person, because that's how you grow as a student. And growing as a student is how you grow as a person. And that was different than what we'd seen anyone else doing.
So were you able to stick around long enough to see the result or the effect of what that?
And I actually taught some sections myself because as a former, I really enjoyed teaching. So I taught some sections myself so that I could see how the curriculum was moving. And it, as the department chair, I can tell you, it decreased the number of complaints about the course by 50%. So I would hear, why do we have to take this? There's nothing here. There's no value. What are we learning? So we dropped criticism and increased value for the importance of that information. And then we also saw students stepping into that material in a much more mature way. Now, this was before COVID. COVID changed things in education and for a lot of young people. This was prior to COVID. And we really started to see growth and maturity and an understanding for the importance of that course versus, oh God, this is something you're making me take. It was almost as bad as speech, Zane. Oh,
So I want to shift a little bit about your custody evaluator role. So, which means families in the worst moment of their lives, you're putting their children's future in your hands. I mean, even whether they sometimes voluntarily, probably not most of the time. And what does that weight feel like? So I mean, you're so involved intimately with their most precious cargo, or you'd hope it'd be their most precious cargo. I think for most people, even parents who are maybe not functioning at the highest level, it's still their most precious cargo. So what did that's a very big responsibility.
it is, you know what? It is a very big responsibility. And I'm gonna say this statement and I don't say it lightly. Family court is broken. And family court has been broken, in my opinion, for a very long time, in that it doesn't always make the best decisions or even good decisions. I worked in Cook County, the Cook County family court system in the
So you have
suburbs of
quite an
Chicago.
assortment of you span the gamut of families,
Yes,
which
they
would be
could be
very
exceptionally
enlightening.
wealthy and very wealthy, and then sometimes very manipulative. And then you could have people that were really struggling on how they were even going to be able to take care of their child. So it was really a very vast population. But back to your question about dealing with the heaviness of that. When you do what I do, your ethics, your professional ethics are hugely important. So understanding your boundaries and your ethics in situations like that. And then going in and saying, I'm going to do the best I can for everybody. Really trying to get understanding from both sides, if you will. Try to get a sense, use some of my therapy skills to understand where people are, and then also use that knowledge to help the children. Because sometimes kids, not sometimes, kids always hear things they shouldn't hear. Okay. That I'm just going
Hmm.
to say. One of my tidbits is one time I had a couple say to me, "Oh, our children don't hear anything we say." And I said, that is not true. And they said, "How do you know that?" And I said, several years ago, I worked with a client who said to me, if I sit in my closet in the exact right spot, I can hear every word my parents say in their bedroom.
Ooh.
And that's when I said, that is a message that people need to know. No, our kids hear what we're saying. We can think they're not, but that is an illusion. They really are. Maybe not all of it, but they're picking up some of it here, there, wherever. And now with phones, people have such intimate phone conversations in front of other people. There's no way kids aren't getting pulled into that. So just going forward, really doing my best to do my due diligence, gaining as much material as I can, as much information as I can, and Zane, knowing that someone's going to be unhappy. Okay, when you do custody evaluation, someone's going to be unhappy.
So when you're doing that, and then you'd go into the courtroom and make recommendations, is that right?
Correct. Correct. The
And then
judge is really looking for someone to assist them in making a decision that they don't really have the information or the time to gather the information, is the best way I think I could describe it.
so would you have to testify, or would you do it mostly written?
Mostly written, but on occasions I would need to testify.
And did you ever feel like you made a strong recommendation and then the judge ended up going the other way?
Yes. Yes.
And is that's got to be, and Ellen, that's got to be entirely frustrating.
That is incredibly frustrating and sad making. It was a young female that I had been working with, and when I first started working with them, and this was a case where I worked at her very young, very, very young, and then the child then, as a young adult, brought charges against her father. And they worked very hard to find me. And I'm going to be honest, saying I worked hard to avoid that subpoena. I'm not going to lie to you about it. I did. But I was subpoenaed and I went to court
Yeah.
and they asked me what my concerns were. And my concerns were very clear. When the parent had arrived for a supervised visitation, which is a visitation between the parent, the child, and someone who is observing them, the parent chose to arrive to the visitation in a pair of jeans where the hole was completely open around the crotch, completely open. And I had to ask them to leave and ended the session. That information made it into my report. Many, many years later, that report made it to someone's desk. That had me brought into a courtroom, which I did, and I went and I testified. That is a serious behavior to bring into supervised visitation.
Right.
And the judge did not agree with mine or the adolescent's side of what was happening.
Wow. That's so it's I don't even know how to respond to that. That's just upsetting even to hear that. Did you have any other situations, maybe not quite as astounding as that one, where you made some recommendations and they were just promptly ignored? Or
I would say you're probably looking at 50-50. 50-50 on ignored and 50-50 on followed. That's
and
what
so
you're looking at. And you're also looking at the judges. The judges were very specific personalities, and those personalities really affected how much they listened to what I had to say or they did not.
so what would be the, now I'm just curious about this whole thing. So we got to go through, we talk about comprehensive counseling, but I want to go and satisfy my curiosity. So
Okay.
when so you'd have in the courtroom, you'd have, the attorneys on one side and the attorneys on the other side, and then so they played a big part in the overall what happened in the courtroom. And how would they did you ever feel like your integrity was impugned by one side or the other side when you were?
Well, you can assume that your integrity is going to be impugned by the side that you're not on. Remember that part, Zane, where somebody's not happy?
Yeah.
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 Yes. Yeah. So you can assume that whichever side you're on the multiple times that I've testified, whichever side I am not aligning with tends to come for me very, very harshly. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to segue now into comprehensive counseling. So, in comprehensive counseling, are you still doing some of that work?
You know what? I'm not doing custody evaluation work anymore. My practice, I do a lot of work. I'm in Champaign-Urbana, and I do clinical supervision for the Masters in Counseling program. So my time has really become filled up with that. But also, Zane, that is work that at least I could only do for a limited amount of time, and then I had to stop.
Yeah, I would think that emotionally that would be really draining. In fact, I talk to a lot of attorneys, and sometimes they have vicarious trauma because they're representing these people who've been through these awful, the worst times in their life. And I would think that would pertain to what you were doing because it would be so emotionally, especially if you felt like the judge made such a bad decision and it put someone that you maybe had really developed an affinity for, and put them in a bad situation that you just had to walk away. And so I think you'd put up a wall after a while.
Yes, you do put up a wall, and I think that's the part where it's best to get out after a while, because
Hmm.
if that
Hmm.
wall, and I did know custody evaluators that this would happen, that wall gets so thick that the truth can't even get through to you, and then you're not serving the purpose that you were brought into. Your purpose. That wasn't your purpose. Your purpose is to do your best to get to what is really happening and what is best for the child. And when that gets too icky, it gets too hard.
So let's shift gears and talk about something that you're involved in right now, comprehensive counseling. You founded that and you've been a licensed clinical professional counselor for over 25 years. Walk me through what the first session looks like when someone comes to you for the first time.
So when someone comes to me for the first time, usually we've done a consult first. I'm a big believer in that people should shop around for their therapists. And any therapist that's not willing to offer you a 15, 20-minute consultation call probably is not a therapist that you're going to want to work with. So usually when I meet someone for the first time, we've already talked on the phone or met in person, and we've gone through the paperwork so that they're ready to come into the office and get going on their work. And usually, how we start is the client has identified some goals in the time that we've spoken. And so I ask them about those goals, and then I start gathering information. Um, I have been told, and I believe it's true, that after doing this for so many years, I am very direct, and I don't spend a lot of time necessarily, is this okay? Is this okay? I ask questions. My favorite expression is honesty with kindness. In here, I'm going to be honest and I'm going to do it as kindly as I possibly can. And that's what I ask for my clients too when they're out in the world. If you could do honesty with kindness, that would be beautiful. And so once we figure out what that goal is, I really like to have my patients interactive. We're going to talk about what their diagnosis code is. We're going to talk about their treatment plan. We're going to talk about those goals. We're going to write those goals together because that gives them a much stronger sense of ownership over the work we're doing, as well as sometimes people think therapists are like magic or something, that like we just watch them and then we know these things. And it's not true. We're a science. We really are a well-developed behavioral science. And I want clients to know that no, there is science behind this. There's a rhythm, there's a rhyme, and we're going to help you figure that out. And I'm very fortunate. I have really lovely.
So what is the general direction that most of your counseling takes? What the patient population, their age, and what are they generally
You
suffering
know,
from?
I'm really, really fortunate in that my population is very varied. My youngest client is 13. My oldest client, I think, is 85. So I have a very wide range. I do some couples work, not a lot because couples work is very draining. Also on a side note, when you do couples work, you get paid less from insurance companies than when you do an individual session. Isn't that
Really?
fascinating?
Yeah, it
I
is
know.
interesting. I think you'd
Wouldn't you
get paid
think?
double.
Wouldn't you think, Zane? Me too. But I would say right now the presenting thing that I'm hearing and feeling a lot of is anxiety. Whether you're 13 or whether you're 83, anxiety right now is really off the hook. And there's many reasons for that, including the fact that we're living we're living with a nervous system that was designed for caveman times, in a time that is very unlike that. And so there is a lot of free-floating anxiety out there, which is causing people to behave in ways and become emotionally dysregulated in ways that then tend to get them in trouble and make them unhappy.
So, do you have one tip, a simple tip that you can use to help regulate anxiety? I mean, it's
Yes,
not a
I
cure,
do.
but just
I understand, but this is a tip, and it's a simple one, and I wish I could get everybody to do it. Breathe. Please breathe. So often people are in my office and they're talking and they're not, I can see them not breathing. They never take an inhale. And I'll be like, whoa, stop, breathe. So, one piece of advice I give to everybody is breathe. You're in the TSA line at the airport, breathe. You're in a traffic jam, breathe. Just sit and breathe. 5 minutes of breathing can lower your blood pressure and increase your cognitive functioning. And I often practice my breathing at red lights. If I get stopped at a red light, that's my reminder. Sit,
Mhm.
practice my breathing. How often, for me, it's a lot because I'm looking now, people will stop at a light, pick up a phone, stop at the light,
Mhm.
pick up the phone. This is part of why we're so anxious, because we're never stopping the information dump. We're not stopping it, and we're
I'm
not
guilty.
expecting it.
I'm guilty there. I do breathe though. I have several doctor friends, and one of them has counseled me at length about breathing, the breathing technique that she likes to use. And she's very smart.
Excellent. That is correct. And if you're ever in a situation where you don't really know what to do, just stop and breathe. It may feel like forever to you, but it is not forever. And there have been several times in my life where I have been in very difficult circumstances where people have been exceedingly aggressive toward me, where I have just done my breathing, grounded myself, and then I'm not becoming dysregulated. Because remember, our nervous systems, our polyvagal systems, they are always going. They are going 24/7. Are we safe? Are we safe? Are we safe? Are we safe? And when that's happening, without us realizing it, we're always checking to see. And in this world with constant information, constant news, constant bad news right now.
So tell me about, so you use CBT,
Hmm.
and I don't know what that is,
Yep.
polyvagal theory
Hmm.
and the mind body connection for someone who's never been to therapy, like me. What does that actually feel like in the room?
Okay, now Zane, are you bragging that you've never been to
No, I just
therapy?
it's just a comment.
Just
No, I
checking,
mean
because
if I
therapy's good.
so
Okay.
no, I actually I was at therapy one time as a child. We had family therapy.
Okay. Thank you for
So I guess
thank
I
you for
have
that
been
disclosure. I appreciate
I
that.
have been to therapy the one time. Or it
Okay,
was
so
actually several times, but I was probably like, I don't know, 10 or 9 or something like that.
all right. All right. Because, I think therapy is good for everyone. Now, I know I would think that. I understand that I have a bias, but I do really think that. And I think maybe I could prove it if I could get everybody to go. So, but back to, so cognitive behavioral, that's CBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy is, in essence, what we think, what is happening in our brain, what we are telling ourselves is hugely important. And we are telling ourselves things consciously and subconsciously almost every moment that we are awake. And often those messages are negative, and they are associated with something that we either experienced that was negative, or something that someone told us that was negative. So we need to figure out what is the thought or thoughts that are not serving us. Figure out how those thoughts then affect our polyvagal system, our body. Are they increasing our blood pressure? Are we becoming dysregulated? Are we self soothing through alcohol? What are we doing to help our body feel calm when in reality it's not? So I find if I can help the client get the thought and then align that with a calmer feeling, move the thought to a better place, and then align it with a calming feeling in their body, they will attach it much quicker and they will maintain it. They will maintain that feeling of calm much longer. So an example is a client I recently have been working with. I asked them, they had talked a lot about feeling bad, feeling guilt. And I said, so this is a cognitive example. I said, well, what's your
Mm-hmm.
relationship with guilt? That's your homework. What's your relationship with guilt? They came back a week later, just boom. Oh my gosh. My relationship with guilt goes all the way back to church when I was a kid and this, and I was told this and this. So once we unpack what's all happening up here, then we said, well, when you feel guilty, where does that hit you here? I get nauseous, I get headaches, I whatever. And then we work on it in both areas. And it has been very effective.
So, what's your greatest um, single case that you feel like you made the biggest difference in somebody's, or maybe just something that really resonates with you after many years?
After doing this, I think it would be, and this has happened a few times, and it makes me very happy and proud. So I have clients that I will work with a year or two, and then we go our separate ways. And then 5 years later, 6 years later, 10 years later, they'll reach out to me and say, this situation's not going out well, Ellen. Can I check back in with you? Of course you can. Here I am. And they check back in. It doesn't take a long period of time, a couple sessions. We get them realigned. They get themselves realigned. Remember, the client's doing all the work. We're just there to help them. But so for me, I think the biggest success has been the clients that I've seen, I've done the work with, and then they see so much value in the work that they come back years later to continue that work or to start something new. That means what we did together has been really positively effective for them. And that makes me feel happy for the work I do. Yeah.
So you're talking about mindset, and so as a young man, I was in sales for many years, and I listened to all these. I guess it was my dad who gave me my first book when I was actually a teenager. It was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, and then I continued on through much of my life listening to all these tapes that were similar from all these different people that were kind of like in that same venue. So, do you ever use any of those kinds of tools to help people kind of change their mindset?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, what we tell ourselves is so important. And now we have so many advancements with technology. We've got a lot of really good apps out there that there are apps that I can give to my clients or my clients can use to track their moods, track their behaviors, track their negative thoughts. But I believe in positive affirmations. So everyone leaves my session with a positive affirmation on an index card to which they can do whatever they want. But many of them leave, and then that's that positive affirmation, that sentence or two sentences, they carry that with them until the next session. So I think those are really positive. And then, yeah, listening and reading to different podcasts, things like that, hugely important on what we think.
Well, hopefully, our podcast.
Yes, hopefully.
So, you work with preteens, teens, adults, individual couples, and families. Is there a population that pulls at you the most?
I love my college students, my college and grad students. They're really trying to figure out life, and they're trying to figure out what they want with their life. And many times for the first time they're asking themselves really big questions about who they are, who they want to be, how they're going to get there. And they are just a joy to work with because one, they're very intelligent, so they move through the steps. They catch on very quickly and they move through the steps. They very much are motivated to make that change, which helps. And for me, it's like, okay, now I'm helping this generation. Now I'm into the Gen Zs. Let me help some Gen Zs move in a direction that's going to be healthier for them and living just a better holistic life for them. So they are saying, don't tell the rest of my clients. Okay. Those are my favorites.
This will be okay. Well, we won't publish this part. Not.
Okay, fair enough.
So, do you see? So, it's funny how I've made this observation many times throughout my life is that the one generation always talks about the younger generation like they're, and I think this goes all the way back. I think Shakespeare may have even referred to this in some of his plays. Do you find that that they're really the same things are happening over and over? Maybe technology makes things a little bit different, or do you see that there's things that are totally different than they were?
I think there are things that are totally I think it's a combination of both. I think there are things that are totally different than they were. How my son, who's 22, was raised versus how I, who am a Gen X, was raised. Very, very different. My child was not roaming the town all day and I didn't know where he was.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do think there are differences. Are humans humans, kids kids, adults adults? Absolutely 100%. Has the environment changed and that in turn changes us in a way? I do think so. But what I will say, what I'm loving about my millennials is they they get work-life balance and they are really challenging the establishment to say, we want work-life balance. And I have told all of them, I am behind you 100%.
It's so funny. I remember, some like 15 years ago, there was like, oh, that's the end of the world. The millennials are going to take over and this is really going to be horrible. And I was thinking, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's, they're going to be great. Oh, anyway, okay. So rapid fire. I have some rapid fire questions. So
Alrighty.
just to be fun. So the book that changed how you think about therapy.
I read it so long ago, but it would have been Maslow's. It was the book on Maslow's hierarchy and our hierarchy of
Hierarchy of
needs.
needs. Yeah.
hmm
Yoga or meditation, which one do you need more?
Yoga.
Best reality TV show, no judgment.
Oh, that's so hard because you're in my genre now. I'm gonna say the latest episode of Traders was very, very good.
So how did I know that you watch reality TV?
I don't know. How did you know that?
The thing you wish every college freshman knew on day one.
It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better.
And it's something a client said to you that you'll never forget.
Something a client said to me that I'll never forget.
You can always say pass too.
I really can't think of anything, so I'm gonna say
Okay, so
pass.
obviously not. Obviously, okay. So favorite amusement park ride.
Ugh. The Ferris wheel.
Okay.
I'm not an amusement park person. I've been,
So
but
I
I
don't know
am
how
not
we
an
threw that
amusement
one
park
in there, but
Okay.
off the cuff. Okay, um, so tell me about where you are in your business. Is this something that you're looking to grow? Are you happy with where it is, or do you do marketing and try to get new clients in, or how do you do all of that?
I hesitate to say I'm happy where it is because I feel like that's a jinx statement. But I'm going to say it, universe, be kind to me. I'm happy where it is. I have a busy practice. I have more work than sometimes I want to do. So I don't really want to increase that part. With mental health counseling, you need to always have a steady stream, though. If you're going to run a practice and you are going to maintain a practice, you need to have a steady stream of clients. So if clients are starting to rotate out, you need to have the ability to rotate clients in. So you do always need to keep, I kind of liken it to a shark. You do always need to keep going. You do always need to stay relevant. You do need to have things out there because at some point, even if this week I'm fully booked, doesn't mean I am next week and it doesn't mean I
Right.
am next month.
So do you do what kind of outreach you do? Do you go places and speak, or do you do marketing, or what do you do to make sure that that continues to happen?
I have a really good, so I work with the housing authority here where I live, and I do several workshops for the housing authority, and that gets me out into the community a lot. So I go out and I do those at least once a month. That's really helpful. I do market. There are some local to my community marketing places, and I do market there. And then I work very hard to maintain great relationships with other therapists. Right now, my number one referral source comes from other clinicians in the area. So if a therapist is reaching out and saying, "Can you see this client?" I am responsive. I get back to the client on time. I think that is a huge piece of it as well. And one of the things we've seen in the last couple of years is this market, the private practice market, has really become flooded with younger, less experienced clinicians. And so that has kind of thrown the marketing off a little bit as well, figuring out how you want to market within that sphere. But definitely it's one of those you got to keep moving. You have to keep doing. I also work at the university here. That puts me in contact with professors and things like that. So I think it's kind of building all of that, building all those resources.
It's so shoe leather is your primary marketing mechanism.
It
Good
really
for you.
is. It really is.
So
I don't really have a web page. Everybody kept saying, you have to have a web page. You have to have a web page. Not really. I kind of have. You can find me online easily through Psychology Today and things like that. Could I design a web page? Yes. It would be very minimal. I'm not sure that's what I want to be producing with my time and energy right now.
so tell me if someone wants to get in touch with you. So how do they do that, Ellen?
So if you Google Ellen Zimmerman LCPC, it's a little frightening how often you're going to get straight to me, Zane, to tell you the truth. So that's one way to do it. Or you can go to Therapy Finder, Psychology Today Therapist Finder, and you can look up Ellen Zimmerman, Illinois, and I'm going to come up there as well. And then there is also a platform I use when I see my clients, which is called Headway. They also advertise my services, so you could find me there as well. But I've Google searched myself a couple times, and I'm pretty easy to find.
Self-stalking.
Yes, yes, correct, correct.
Okay, Ellen. Well, thanks a lot for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's nice to meet you.
You too, Zane. I hope it's what you wanted.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you have a suggestion for a guest for our show, email us at support@trustcastshow.com and we'll get the conversation started.